Over the past few weeks I've been working to restore this 34-year-old GDM Nissan Pulsar. A task up to this point which hasn't been going smoothly. I'm finally starting to get through the list of things that is needing done in this car, but our latest problem is exhaust fitment. Nevertheless, I can't give up, because I've made a bet with Michelle that the Pulsar will beat her in the up and coming 4-wheel drive road trip, and if I don't get the car ready, the consequences are drastic. Getting busy in this section of the car now, guys. I've disconnected the handbrake cable. I will explain in a moment why, but first I want to show you guys the exhaust. I've removed the centre section here. During the debate on whether or not I should cut this and flange it or cut that and sleeve it, I think I'm going to cut this and flange it, but I'm not going to do it because I really want it to be good, so I'm going to take it down to an exhaust company. Now, if you look there, this is the exact same shape, only that one is longer. So I'm going to give him both, show him the bend and the length, and tell him to cut and weld me on a new flange so that we're not even using this. And then that way it's just going to be done properly. And hopefully we should have the standard exhaust, which is a Jasma box, back up on the car. If we look back here, I'm not a fan of this. Do actually prefer the look of that, but it's too noisy. It drones. On another note, it's spigot ring time. So I have removed the wheel here, but this handbrake cable was always sticky, so it was, and it's basically completely seized in the sleeve there. I don't know if it's a case of either some of the sleeves broken and it's kind of stuck in there, or water's got in and then kind of corroded or whatever's happened. Now I want to talk about that for a second. When I was an apprentice at college, one of the lecturers always spoke about if you left handbrake cables in brake fluid overnight, it was a magic fix for this. I don't know if the brake fluid I don't know. If the brake fluid breaks down the corrosion and unseizes the cable or whatever, I don't know. But these cables for this car, I'm pretty sure are Japan only now. You can get them, maybe £100 each or something, which I'm willing to pay, that's fine. But it's the delay of a month or so probably to get them over. So there's no harm in throwing this in some brake fluid and finding out exactly if it's going to work or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a stool up here with this bottle of brake fluid, and I'm going to leave it overnight, and then tomorrow I'm going to take the exhaust down to the repair company and get that done. So tomorrow I can bolt the exhaust back on. We'll be able to tell if the handbrake cable is resolved, just well enough just now until the ones from Japan come. And we can do the spigot rings and the wheel nuts, which I've yet to show you. Run it up to temperature, because I want to run it to temperature with the new exhaust on, because it's too loud and it's terrible. So that's the plan. Run it to temperature, bleed the coolant system, but I'm going to set up this brake fluid to show you guys. Just let's try it. Everything's to come off this back end anyway when we rebuild it and do all the bushes and stuff. But for now, because we want to do the road trip, I'm just trying to get it through an MOT, so minimum requirements really. And then for there, once I know it runs and it's not going to break down every 10 minutes, we can throw loads of new parts. Got some parts in the office there, good parts. But I'm not prepared to fit them until it starts behaving. It's a threat to the car. So let's get this done. So I don't know if I dip this in here, and do you know what capillary reaction is? I think that's the thing, like if you dip a paintbrush in paint and it starts travelling up the way, it kind of gets sucked in. It's called capillary reaction, but that's between bristles, and I don't have bristles on a handbrake cable, so I'm just going to dunk it in. I don't know if I'm going to take this rubber off, because brake fluid will destroy that, plus it means it can get in. So let's just It's got a wee line in here, and I'm hoping that the fluid maybe travels up and releases it, but it is solid. So .4 brake fluid, it's not the good stuff, don't worry, I emptied it out. I'll leave it to there. Right, bets, is this going to work? I'm going to say no. It's not the same as when we were doing the engine in the last episode, but I don't believe this is going to work. But I will eat my hat if this does work. Something to note, guys, when this is done, when we've tried this is for the bin, because brake fluid is hygroscopic, which means it absorbs moisture. So there's going to be a lot of moisture in here overnight. So, and we've had to leave the cap off, so this fluid is for the bin. So I'm just using waste, old stuff, normal .4 stuff that we have lying around. Nothing special, but we'll see if it works or not. In the meantime, we can continue with the spigot rings. Right, the first part is easy. We simply just have to remove the wheel first. So I'm just nipping off the lug nuts and then we can remove the wheel. So just a reminder about the spigot rings. The old set that I ordered were actually slack inside the kind of hub between the hub and the wheel. And I've ordered a new set and you won't believe it, they're actually too small. So what I'm doing first is I'm just using a wire wheel to clean all around the hub, just in case it's a little bit of corrosion that's stopping it from being a tight fit. And then I've actually pushed it on there and it's too tight now and I can't get it off, so I'm working it off with a little pick. So just took a little bit of sandpaper around the edge there. I'm not really taking anything off it, I'm just trying to clean it, and it's actually perfect now. It's snug, there's no movement, it spins free, but it is nice and snug and tight, and we can get it on and off. So let's hope that when we put it in the wheel we can then offer it up and it should now work. Come on. Yes, that's nice, there's no movement across the hub, and to top it all off, we have some nice new wheel nuts that we're going to fit as well. I almost nearly ordered the wrong ones, so just want to be kind of let you guys understand when you're ordering these things. I use this thread pitch gauge. I've spoke about it before when I'm doing tapping and dyeing and stuff. Put light on, you can measure the thread pitch. That was a 1, now I know what side it is because I ordered them, but I almost did order the 1.5 thread pitch, which would have been wrong. It was 1.25. So, making sure I've ordered the right thread pitch that matches the thread on the stud, they should fit, no bother. Actually similar to the ones I have on the Civic FN2 Type R as well, so they're quite lightweight, but we're going to fit. So I've got a pack of 20. No, I don't, because there are no 5 studs. I've got a pack of 16, and we're going to fire these on, and then hopefully we've got nice spigot ring, sitting nice and flush, and we don't have, because some of these are a 21 and some of these are a 19, and they're actually sitting too wide and they're going to foul against the side of the wheel. This is nice and narrow, so it's going to be a lot better, and it's going to look a lot better as well. And there's some upgrades to do in this area which are going to make it look even better, but that's for once it starts behaving itself, like I mentioned earlier. So that's finally the spigot issue resolved, and with these new wheel nuts it's going to improve the overall look of the wheel and tyre combination. And I'm just giving it a final check over, spinning the wheel to make sure there is no play. We now need to repeat the process with the spigot ring and the wheel nuts on all the 4 corners. So I have decided to adopt a cheat method while I'm doing this. So first I'm going to take off the driver's side wheel and I'm just cleaning up the hub the same as the other side. So my little cheat method is just simply to use the one hub to sand down the last 3 remaining spigot rings. It's a new morning, it's time to reveal the outcome of the handbrake cable, and I've got some updates on the exhaust for you guys. It's all fun and games. Full disclosure, I'm not expecting this to work in any way, shape or form. Also need to consider the effects of brake fluid. It is corrosive, so if it helps here, what has it done? You know what I mean, as a consequence. But I'm not expecting it, but this is it, it's live, so it's hard to tell just by looking at it. I'm just going to grip both ends. Sure it's shite top right enough. I'm going to do that, so I'm going to flip it up and see if we can work it, but it looks as if it's shit top anyway, to be honest, which we did suspect, so we're no shocked here. So it's gubbed. You can see it's actually pulling here because there's a little flex like that when you do it, but it's not actually pulling the cable through, so it must be seized in here. Which is cool, but it just goes to prove, don't believe everything you're ever told. It's better to put a new cable on anyway. I wanted to try, it's not worked. I did think it was bull. We're going to continue with the exhaust work now, which is going to be another dilemma. But it's pulse of life. I see it 10 times an episode, this is pulse of life. Unfortunately, all the companies I spoke to said they needed the whole car down in order to fabricate the exhaust. They said it was due to the two pipes not actually being the same angle, and when I cut the flange off, you can see there it does hip out slightly different, which means I need to refit the loud one in order to bleed the coolant system. It's time, I think, to run the pulsar for as long as I have ran it on this channel. It's time to bleed up the coolant system. Couple of things I've done. I've set up extraction here, which is going to lead out. There's a little fan there. It's going to blow all the fumes that way. Hopefully dull down some of the noise a little bit. We need to run it up, make sure we're getting heat inside. And also we need to make sure that none of the coolant pipes have burst again and there's no more mistakes in there. By running this up for a long time, getting heat through, it's going to pressurise the system and it should let us know if we have any leaks underneath. So there's a lot riding on this next 20 minutes or so for me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sit you guys up and I'm going to stop every now and again to let you know how it's running. First start, let's see. Now with the car running up to temperature, I've switched the blower motor onto the max setting, and I've also turned up the temperature dial to as high as it can go. This will allow the coolant to start flowing through the heater matrix and will give us hot air and bleed the system properly. While it's running and I'm still nervous about any coolant leaks, I'm just constantly monitoring everything to make sure it's running okay. Update if you guys can hear me, it's been running for a couple of minutes now. The revs are sitting just over 1000. I think that might be pretty normal. The temperature gauge hasn't coming up yet, but we are getting some slightly warm air coming out, which is good. Gauges are okay for now, I'm sure that's oil temp, but it won't get warm for a little while yet. The middle one is oil pressure, which looks pretty okay. So we're just going to have to run it until we get the coolant up and it stays in the middle, roughly about 90 degrees. But we are getting some hot air here, which is good. Update guys, temperature is up, well better with the flash on. We need to go up a little bit more and stay there, so make sure it's not overheating. Everything else is sitting pretty okay just now. We are running not too bad, but every now and again I think it's got a little hesitant misfire on it. But probably could be doing with new plugs, and we need to double check what our fueling is like. Also, I might do away with that carbon canister because it may be the issue, but it is ticking away. The thermostat's not open yet, so we have to keep going. We need it to open to allow the coolant to come down through the radiator to get any air out of the system. We are filling up in here a wee bit fumy. That's with the extraction, so I think it's still running a little bit rich. But we're going to keep it going just now, just to let the temperature get all the way up and to make sure the system is bled. Then we can keep dealing with the coolant system. Then we can keep dealing with the engine management and running with the car separate from the cooling issue. As long as this gets up to temperature and it doesn't leak, Then we can start revisiting everything else. So, after about 30 minutes of running, you can see the temperature is still sitting good. Revs might have raised slightly. Oil temperature's up. Everything's sitting good, oil pressure. Everything's sitting not too bad. We've seen the fans kicking in a moment ago, so I know they're working. We're starting to get a little bit of heat coming out of the expansion bottle. I've left the cap off just to let any air come out, any bubbles. Pipe into the radiator and the return down below are both nice and warm. So, some kind of good news, some come see come sad news. The good news is I've pulled one of the plugs out, and focus again here. I did give it a little clean up before I put it in, there. So I cleaned it before I put it in just to tip, and it's running okay by the looks of it. It's not fouled up, so normally that would be black, and I have ran this for as long as I have ever ran this pulsar without driving it, or maybe even as long as it's ever ran, for a good 30 minutes or so. So it was soaking the plugs and fouling the plugs after 1 minute, and that's it after 30 minutes, and that's an old plug, it's no new, so ignore all the black stuff around the edge. Just looking at the tip, which doesn't look too bad. On other news, it's dry under there just now, but we did see that little drip that I've added in. Don't know if it's just condensation build up. It is quite no damp in here, but you do get condensation in here when it's cold, so there would have been a lot of build up in there, and I don't know if vibration's causing it to drip. It looks very clear, the fluid, whereas we have filled this with very blue coolant, so it's hard to tell, and it's no dropping as frequent as ever happened before. I was always left with a big puddle below, so it's not a big puddle, but something to keep an eye on. I have actually put my torch down the back and watched it while it was running. Everything looks dry. I might pull off the intercooler and have another look just to double check, because that is one of the biggest concerns taking this anywhere long, is that it's going to leak coolant somewhere, which obviously isn't ideal. Temperature wise, everything was all running good. All the rest of it, that's all good stuff. I'm going to drain the oil now. It's time to get fresh oil in this. If you're running a lot of fuel in, if you're over fueling, some of it will get down past the rings and it will end up in your oil. I've pulled the dipstick out, there's a little hint there, so it's time just to, it needs an oil change anyway, and we have the filter here now, so we're going to drain the oil, change the oil. I'm sure everyone is familiar with how to carry out an oil change, but I'm just going to talk through it anyway. First, I've removed the sump plug, and that will allow the oil to drain out. The oil is nice and hot because the car has been running, so it's flowing out nice. Next, I'm just removing the old oil filter, genuine Nissan, and I'm replacing it with a genuine Nissan with a new genuine Nissan sump plug and crush washer as well. So now that everything's drained out, I'm just putting the sump plug back in, and then we can tighten it down. I've just nipped it up here to allow the crush washer to crush, and then I will final torque it later. Next, I'm just wiping down the area so that when we run the car up, any leaks will be visible. Then I can spin on the new oil filter and then add in the oil. I'm using Miller's oil this time, and you can see there I'm pretty much making a mess everywhere. I then spin the cap on, start the car up, let it run for around 30 seconds so that the oil can start pumping round to the filter, and then I start checking my levels. I top up if required, and you can see there I'm actually using a funnel this time so that I don't make any more mess. The washer system is blocked from sitting for so long, so I've blown some compressed air through it to free everything off. That does sound like Michael Jackson. And now, with my best Michael Jackson impression out the way, I can fill up the washer system. I finally found use for that coolant bottle that I tried to use earlier. Look! Why the fuck just sell you? Look at that! Look at the fucking size of that! And look at that! Some folk just... Why bother? So now, with another problem ticked off the list, with the washer system now fully working, it was time to do a light check on the car before its inspection. And I found on the passenger side I have no side light and no dip beam, so this needs investigated. I've power probed the bulbs and both of them seem to be working, so we know it's not an issue with the bulbs. Yep, fuse is okay. If we're getting power to there, then it could be that they're not earthing properly, or there's just a slight bad connection in there with the bulb. They were all working before. Pulsar life. Count the amount of times I say Pulsar life in an episode.
You should make it a t-shirt.
Michelle, let's make a Pulsar life t-shirt and sell it to everybody, and then the funds can fix this, or we can pay for somebody else to fix it. That sounds good. Even though the bulbs are still working, you can see here they look a little bit rough, so I've used electrical cleaner on the plug side and I've just fitted new bulbs to be safe. And hey presto! We now have all 4 lights. So good news with the handbrake cable, I did actually manage to find one in the UK, which came a lot quicker than I expected. So I've removed the old cable and you can see the difference between the new cable here and the old cable here. I don't think any amount of brake fluid would have managed to cure that. So now I'm just feeding the new handbrake cable through and connecting everything back up. So, one more issue to address is there's a slight sweat here on the back diff. I have a confession about the back diff that I want to share with you guys. So before I actually became a mechanic, I'm sure I had this back cradle off. And one of the things I did when I done that was change all the oil, so it got new diff oil. Now, I think it's hard to recall, but I think at the time I maybe wasn't a believer in centrifugal force. And because the diff was off, and it wasn't in this position here, with a drain hole and a refill hole, I think at the time when I filled it, the refill hole was actually pointing vertical up the way, and the drain one was shown as I don't know, but I think I've overfilled this. I think this is full of oil when I'm sure it's only supposed to take 1 litre, and I think this is full. We're about to find out, so what I'm going to do first is clean it down, and that will show, clean it down just to get the gunk away, and that's going to show us the overspill. I've no idea how much oil was in this, but I'm scared in case, because I want to use this car a lot, I'm scared in case I blow up the diff. We do have a spare diff, but I don't want to blow this one up, so I'm just doing it right now and I'm going to address it, and let's see what comes out the box. Firstly, I'm just using brake cleaner to clean down the area where the sweat has been happening on the transfer box. So I'm actually removing the filler plug and not the drain plug. So you can see the drain plug at the bottom, which I should be using to drain everything out, but I have overfilled this. Normally when you're filling in through the fill plug, you just start pumping oil in until it starts dripping out, and you can see here when I've cracked it off there is a bit of an overflow, so I'm catching everything so that we can measure it. Then I've just tightened up the filler plug again, cleaned everything down, and then I'm measuring all the excess that came out, and you can see there's around 250 mil. With that done, I can lower the ramp down and it's time for the MOT test.
Paul, why are you taping £20 notes to my glasses?
The most important part of preparation for any MOT inspection, Michelle, the MOT tester's glasses. Didn't think that through there.
Right, I can hear him coming. I'm a little bit nervous. Oh, I don't know. Has it passed? Has it failed? I'm very nervous.
Pass.
No, it didn't.
Michelle, you've backed me into a corner here. I can't move. Why have you still got that? I've passed. The car has won. I've won.
No, you've no won. You've passed the first hurdle, Paul. It's no one.
It has. It's on the road and it's ready.
It's still going to break down and I'm still going to need this.
That is. You can't keep threatening me with
I'm
this.
going to bring it with me because you're never going going to make the road trip?
I'm going to make the road trip. Book the ferry. It's time to go.
I'll book the ferry. I'm going to kick your ass on my car. You're not going to make it.
My car is going to destroy your car.
Well, we get the viewers to vote whether I use this or I don't use it.
Michelle, my car is going to I'm going to overtake you on the road trip. That is the bet.
You have no chance.
I have. On that, shouldn't say bombshell when you've got an actual bomb next to you, but it's time to end this episode. Stop it. You're not in the next episode. In the next episode.
Your car's not in the next episode.
That's all we've got time for this episode. I've just ran on a little bit, so I can't show you guys the first drive. So the first drive is literally going to be getting it to the ferry. It's going to the first drive is going to be onto the ferry on the way to the 4-wheel drive challenge. My car is Michelle's car, and I'm going to win. I'm going to kick her ass. That's just simple as. So we'll see you guys on the next. See you guys on the next episode. Thanks for watching.